Welcome, everyone, to another episode of CelloConnect. Today, we are going to talk to the inimitable, only Queen of Salt Lake Cello, Brittany Platt Gardner. Brittany, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Peter. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, you can tell by the background here in the room that we're recording this at Christmas time.
Here, I'll even show you. I have a tree in my studio. So,
Terrific. So you're in your teaching space right now.
yeah, I'm in my teaching space.
Great. Do you want to give us a little tour?
Yeah, sure. So right here above my Christmas tree, you'll see I have a tone tree. I've learned to talk to my students that the tone of like the sound you want out of your cello has two really important components. It has roots for depth, and it also has branches for reach, for breadth. And
Awesome.
then behind me are just lots and lots of papers that illustrate cello playing principles. Cellists will appreciate something like this. This is arpeggio fingering, right? You start on tonic and then you shift and play 1 4 2, shift 1 4 2, shift 1 4 2. This works for every single key. I've got information about this is like the note has a beginning, a middle, and an end. We have this is a really cool one. I can go off. I could spend the whole episode on this wall, Peter. I won't do that to you, but this is the Deathly Hallows symbol, right, from Harry Potter. But in our studio, we call it Liam's triangle because my student Liam helped me figure it out. And we talk about how to have great balance at the cello, you have to have an invisibility cloak. You have the point at which your cello touches your heart and then your two knees, right? You have to have that triangle stability. The elder wand is your spine, so it's nice and tall and it's not like bending and like goofy all over. And then the resurrection stone is your belly, round and soft and like a center of power. So anyway, this is sometimes in a lesson, especially online lessons, it can be really easy that I can just be like, oh, remember to shift like this. Oh, remember your elder wand, you know, a little quick cue that doesn't take a lot of explaining.
Well, yeah, let's get to know you a little bit. If you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about your cello history and how you got into it.
So my parents were both trained as woodwind music educators. They both have music ed degrees, and my mom went on to get a master's of flute performance as well. So my parents really both loved music, and it was important to their lives. And so they had all of their kids, there's 3 of us, they had us all start piano lessons when we were 4. And then if we stuck with it, which we were required to do, but they made it sound like it was a choice. They said, if you stick with it, then when you're, you know, around 10, then you can have the privilege of choosing your second instrument. So here they are spinning this cool web of like, we're going to get them to play 2 instruments because we'll give them the choice. And so that's kind of how it went. And then when I was just before my 8th birthday, my mom's friend, who was a neighbor in our ward, said, my sister runs this really cool string Suzuki music camp in the summers, and she's looking for a student who has never played the cello to come be a demonstration student for a teacher class, so the teachers can learn how to set up a brand new beginner student. And so my mom approached me and said, well, it's getting about time for you to choose your second instrument. What do you think about the cello? And I was like, okay, that sounds cool. I'm not one of those kids who like saw it on a show or saw it at a performance and was immediately drawn to it. It was an instrument of connection, which is funny as I look through my life, because connection I find is a theme that keeps coming up for me, like in my life's work too. Anyway, so it was a matter of connection. I said, sure, that sounds fun. So my mom and dad went ahead and bought me a cello for my 8th birthday. And like I remember getting it and not knowing if you're supposed to put it on this side of your body or this side of your body. And I was like, I don't know. So we went to the Suzuki Institute summer camp, and I had my first series of lessons. I went to class every single day for that week, Monday through Saturday. And the 2 teachers who taught me and set me up were Dr. Tanya Carey and Dr. Nakajima from Japan. And I didn't know how amazing that was because I was just an 8-year-old kid. But as I look back now, I go, wow, that was really cool. And I just found that as I kept going, I loved it more and more. Anyway, I just found that I liked the way it felt in my body. I'm a really kinesthetic person, and I liked that I needed to use my whole body rather than like just my fingers at the piano. And of course, a pianist would maybe disagree with me on this, but I mean, I feel like there's a larger range of motion in a cellist's body than, say, a piano or a flute or even a violin. I liked that feeling of being in my body. I really loved the way that the cello connects directly to my heart. I think that's such a special thing about the cello. No other instrument like touches directly where your heart is, you know, that's so special. It just kept being that the things that lit me up in my life were always connected to the cello. That's how I got started. And I find it's interesting that, like I said earlier, I started the cello because of a connection. And I find that that's probably the most meaningful part about my life as a cellist is the connections that I find as I'm teaching and playing and being a musician. Even more so than the music and the art itself, which, you know, maybe that's why I'm a teacher and not a performer. So anyway, that's my story.
So you also have sort of a famous Forrest Gump moment, if you don't mind me calling it that, with Yo-Yo Ma.
Yeah.
Mind telling that story?
Sure, that's one of my favorite stories. I should have pulled the picture up. I could have brought it. It's just in the other room. But when I was 12, Yo-Yo Ma came and performed at the Utah Symphony. And as part of that, I was a member of the kids club for the symphony, the Utah Symphony Youth Guild. And my mom signed me up to go to this class that Yo-Yo Ma was teaching. After his rehearsal in the daytime with the symphony, he did a little question and answer period for a group of, I don't know, it couldn't have been more than like 40 or 50 students. It was kind of a small group. And I remember she checked me out of school. And so it was like kind of cool, this big deal. Anyway, so Yo-Yo's answering everybody's questions, and everyone in the group, you know, I went with my friends, and everyone in the group was asking these really special and important questions like, how do you practice this, or what's your favorite piece to play, or where do you like to travel, or what's it like to play this cello or that cello or whatever. And I raised my hand and I was like, does your cello have a name? And he said, no, it doesn't. Would you like to name it? And I went, like, are you serious? And he said, why don't I play something for you? And actually, I can play the opening of it. I have my cello right here. So he's like, let me play a piece for you, and you can hear the cello's personality, and then you can let me know what the name of the cello is. So he started out by playing, and I had not heard this piece before. Of course, any cellist watching this CelloConnect is going to be like, well, duh, everybody knows what it is. But he just put his cello up and he started going. Anyway, so, and of course, the minute the first note played, I was like, Petunia. It came to me like a flash of inspiration, like, that is the name that it should be. And I mean, how amazing is this? He was playing something else. I think maybe he's doing like Haydn or maybe Dvorak or something with the symphony. But of course, he just sits down and plays a prelude to the Sixth Suite like it's no big deal. And any cellist is going to be like, it's a big deal. So he finishes, and then he says, so what do you say? And I said, oh, Petunia. And he goes, Petunia. He kind of like chokes on it a little, like, that's kind of interesting. And he said, okay, well, thank you for naming Petunia. And, you know, honestly, as a 12-year-old kind of starstruck girl, I thought, oh, there's nobody who's going to remember or hold on to that. But what happened was 6 months later, like within that year, he was interviewed on 60 Minutes in the news program. They did a whole spotlight on him. And I remember my mom calling me into her bedroom to watch the TV. She's like, Britt, Yo-Yo's on TV. Like we were on a first name basis or something. Yo-Yo's on the TV, come here. And the interviewer was like, yeah, tell us about your cello. And Yo-Yo Ma said, you know, ever since my cello was named Petunia, she's taken on this whole new personality. And I buy plane tickets for Petunia Ma. And da 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 da. And my mom and I looked at each other and our jaws are dropping open, like, this is crazy. So my mom figured out, she tracked down his agency, the agency that represented him, and their address. So she had me write a letter. My mom's really smart. My mom's really great about connection too. So she had me write a letter to him, and I just wrote, she said, you can write whatever you want, but let's tell him we saw him on TV. So my letter said something like, thanks for remembering. I can't believe how kind that is of you to remember that name. And I'm just, some student in Salt Lake City. And then he wrote back to me, Peter, and I have this 8x10 black and white picture where he signs, "Hey, Brittany, thanks for naming my cello and being P's godmother. Good luck and best to you, yo yo ma."
That is awesome.
And so I have that framed in the room my students come in and unpack, and he just kind of watches over everybody as they come in for lessons. And I guess I'm godmother to a Stradivarius cello.
Not too long ago, you started getting into Reiki and energy work as well. So if you wouldn't mind, for myself included and others, like talking a little bit about what Reiki is, and then I'd actually like to know a little bit about how you feel that your musical background has helped you in those efforts.
So Reiki is a Japanese approach and therapy system of stress reduction and relaxation. And what happens in a Reiki session is the practitioner, that would be me, I've done some training in it, just like lays their hands lightly on top of the client who's there, or they can even do it without touching, but they channel the Reiki, which is just universal life force energy, that like good life vibe energy that's out there all around us. The practitioner channels it and helps distribute it to the client in front of them. And it can, the interesting thing about it is it's just bringing that energy to the person so that their body can heal and feel stress release in the way that it's naturally meant to. In our modern society and our Western approach and our, we live so much in our heads and we're not always aware of our body. And we sometimes get, like we create our own problems sometimes with our energy and anxiety and stress. And so Reiki is just a way to kind of help minimize that and support the body's natural ability to heal. And I loved the idea that it's Japanese, because that of course ties into my training and my experience as a student of Suzuki method, which is of course also Japanese. There's something about Japanese sensibility and approach that really resonates, forgive the pun, with me, just having been in that kind of world that and culture for a long time. What I find that the parallels between specifically being a music teacher and being involved in Reiki is that as a teacher, I feel that one of my most important things to do is be open to the wisdom and knowledge that's out there already, just kind of floating in the universe, like being open to that and being ready to receive that inspiration for the student in front of me. You've probably had this experience too as a teacher, where you're working with a student and if you're really lined up and you're really seeking their good and you're wanting to do the very best by them, sometimes ideas come to your head that you've never heard of before or you've never tried. And it's because you're open to the wisdom that's already out there, the light and knowledge that's like already there. And then how cool is that when you get to learn that and then share it and then give it in a personal way to the person in front of you? That's exactly what Reiki feels like to me. Although my client doesn't have a cello and we're not playing like humoresque or pieces from a Suzuki repertoire list, but it's still me being like, I don't have to know all of the answers and I don't have to know everything that's going on with you, but I can trust that as I line myself up with goodness and light and a wish for the welfare of the person in front of me, that the right information will come through me to them.
Speaking of just energy and kind of connecting to that, universal wisdom that exists, do you feel that music study can be a way for people to access that? And have you?
Yeah, totally. We are just bundles of energy. I mean, we're in a physical body, but it's energy. I mean, that's not even like new age energy therapy idea. That's like quantum physics and whatever. We're like all made of energy.
Right.
And there's different levels of vibration. I'll tell you a quick story. When I have a friend who a few years ago had a mother who needed back surgery. So her mother had back surgery, and as part of the rehabilitation for that, the mother was supposed to wear a belt every day for a prescribed amount of minutes that vibrated at a certain frequency. And that frequency was the same frequency as her bones. So it stimulated bone growth.
Oh, wow.
This was not an alternative medicine approach. This was the therapy from her Western surgeon. Wear this vibrating belt for this many minutes every day to stimulate bone growth. Clearly, as physical beings, we are affected by the physical things around us. Something that cellists may also find really fascinating is if we talk about the energy centers in our body, which are called chakras, which people who are familiar with yoga or Eastern thought will know about. There are 7 chakras, and they all have different frequencies, starting at your root chakra, which is at the bottom. Then you have sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and crown. I hope I got all 7. But what's really fascinating, and I have to look at my chart just to make sure, the heart chakra vibrates at the same frequency as C, which is our lowest string, right? The next chakra vibrates at a G. You're going to love this. The next chakra vibrates at a D, and the next chakra vibrates at an A. It literally goes, those top 4 go in the same order as our cello strings. Hello. So, and I just want to demonstrate this. Every people who've studied any kind of sound, like physics of sound, understand the idea of sympathetic vibrations. We do this all the time with our students, right? You play a low D on your C string, right? And if played in tune, it will make both your D string and your A string vibrate because that vibration is the same, okay? So all this to say, like if you're having a problem with your heart chakra, well, immerse yourself in the key of C major because that's the sympathetic vibration for your heart, and it will help your heart be stronger, more flexible, more flowing. I mean, isn't that an interesting thing?
All right. So here's the question that I love to ask everybody. If you could identify one moment in your life where you have felt that music, either listening to it or playing it or studying it, has really transformed you as a person.
This is a difficult question because there are so many times. I think it would be really hard to choose just one. Maybe I'll just give you a little salt and pepper of a few different ones. I remember as playing at a summer camp, Stravinsky's Firebird Suite for orchestra. And I remember, you know, we at the concert, we played from the beginning all the way to through the end. And the Firebird is this legend of like evil being conquered by the light and the Firebird and the transformation. And like, oh my gosh, when you play that, like from the very beginning where it's like dark and low and mysterious, and throughout movement after movement, and there's the clashes and the battles, and at the end the Firebird rises triumphant. Oh, I felt transformed, like I was the Firebird, like I was reborn or something. It was amazing. I remember when I was a senior in college, one of my best friends was killed in a car accident. And I was working on the Elgar Concerto at that time. And I just remember sitting down and playing the third movement over and over and over again and sobbing because it was the only thing that moved that grief through me. It was the only thing, the only therapy that worked. I remember when I was learning the second suite, the Sarabanda, the second suite, and the very, very end is just low D octaves. So it's like, it's just this like meandering D minor thing. And at the very end, it plays just a low D. And I remember the day, Peter, that I heard not just the low D, but also the hidden F sharp in the overtone series. And all of a sudden, it was not just D minor, it was major and minor. I understood why minor is so conflicting to us when we listen. It's because the third scale degree goes against the overtone series. physically in our bodies, even if our ears can't perceive it, physically we feel the clash of those pitches, in this case the F with the F sharp. And then I remember being like, oh, like there's resolution. Even though it ends like minor, if you have the ears to hear, you can hear that it's major at the end. And I just remember being like blown away by that. Like there are so many layers of the tone and the pitch that we experience but don't perceive sometimes. So I guess it's many times in my life I have been transformed over and over again by experiencing music and its transformative power energetically and scientifically, but also its connective power human to human.
Okay, now we're on to my favorite part, which is I'd love to have you play something for us.
Okay, I'll just tell you, I'm going to play just a little bit of a fun piece. And I know that this won't air during Christmas time, but it's a kind of a Christmas piece. It's Mark Summers' arrangement of Lo How a Rose.
Yep.
And I love him because he just kind of puts this cool jazz spin on stuff. And I'm so much a rule follower, do it the right way. I am classically trained, my friend. That is how I am. And so when I do something like this, it just challenges me a little bit. But I find that, the technique I've learned does come in handy. So I will play that.